Welcome back to the Red Dice Diaries. I'm continuing our series of videos on different types of villain. Today we're going to talk about the fallen hero. The fallen hero is often a tragic figure. Once they were a great hero or a warrior on the side of light, but hubris, circumstance or temptation has lured them over to the dark side, and now they are a formidable foe to the heroes of your game. Fallen heroes are characterised by having a noble and heroic history, along with a noted, and often formidable, reputation. They almost certainly did not see themselves as a villain, and in fact may still see themselves as a hero. Fallen heroes possess whatever abilities and expertise allow them to initially become a hero, whether this is formidable skill at arms, magical knowledge, or something entirely different. Typically they sacrifice none of these abilities when falling into shadow, and in fact, depending on the nature of their fall, their powers may be bolstered by dark arts. Fallen heroes may still cling to a twisted sense of honour, a holdover from their previous lives. For example, a fallen warlord may think nothing of utterly decimating the forces that oppose him, but may refuse to fight an unarmed opponent. Such codes of honour are often twisted or circumvented in ways that allow the villain to do exactly what they want to, while seeming to cleave to the letter, if not the spirit, of their code. In the previous example, for instance, the fallen warlord, when faced with an unarmed peasant who cannot possibly match him in combat, may throw the poor man a dagger, reasoning that now the peasant is armed, he's fine to engage him in combat and slay the unfortunate farmer. Clearly this goes against the spirit of the code, but it allows the villain to justify his actions to himself. In order to make the most of a fallen hero in your game, there are a few things that you should keep in mind. The first is to make sure they are established as a former hero, since the tragedy of this sort of villain is that once they were a shining exemplar of positive virtues, someone the heroes might have looked up to before their inevitable fall into darkness. These villains lose a lot of their impact if they spring seemingly from nowhere. At the very least, the player characters should have heard tales of the fallen heroes' valiant deeds in the past. If you can introduce the fallen hero before their fall and have the player characters interact with them and then have them fall in-game, the impact will be even greater. Perhaps, to use a D&D style game as an example, the low-level player characters hear tales of the hero's great deeds, perhaps even interacting with them. Then the fall occurs and the players are destined to face the now villainous fallen hero once they reach higher levels. A low-level party could even be sponsored by the older hero, making the later fall seem more personal and more like a betrayal and giving it that greater impact. The second point is the inciting incident. Now, the fallen hero didn't just wake up one morning and decide to be evil. There should always be some sort of incident that tipped them over the edge and caused them to slide into the shadows. This could be a traumatic event, temptation by an evil power, or just the natural evolution of one of their previous character flaws. The most obvious example I can think of is Isildur in The Lord of the Rings. Having helped lead the alliance of men and elves to victory over Sauron, he stood poised to throw the Ring of Power into the fires of Mount Doom, but at the last was overcome by greed, aided by the corruptive power of the ring, choosing instead to keep it for himself and doom the world to the Dark Lord's eventual return. The third point is there but for the grace of God. And what I mean by this is that the fallen hero shows the PCs a fate that could possibly befall themselves if they were pushed too far or placed in an untenable situation. You should do your best to portray them as a sympathetic character whose actions are understandable even if the PCs do not approve of them, rather than just some sort of moustache-twirling caricature. In fact, the fallen hero may not always be opposed to the PCs and might even help them depending on how their goals align at any particular point in your campaign. However, the fallen hero will go to lengths and take actions that a normal hero would find reprehensible or at least objectionable. For example, a fallen hero is the protector of a village and has family there. One day he returns to the village to find everyone massacred by bandits living in the nearby woods. He hunts down the criminals and has them executed. This is understandable and may be completely appropriate depending on the laws of the setting and the level of authority that the hero has. However, if he then goes on to impose strict laws over the area, executing those who commit even the most minor of infractions, perhaps placing their heads on pikes besides well-travelled highways as a warning to others, then he has clearly gone too far and has fallen into villainy. Whilst the player characters may empathise with his earlier actions, when they hear about a young man who was executed for stealing a loaf of bread to feed his family, I would hope that they would be moved to take action. So there we go, there's our first type of villain, the fallen hero. A sort of dark mirror as to what could happen to the player characters, and they have a little bit more depth to them because at times they are sympathetic and understandable. They're not just a caricature. They almost certainly don't regard themselves as a villain, and in fact might still see themselves as heroes. They're just willing to do what's necessary, unlike some other people. If you're looking for a villain that's potentially going to have a lot of impact and create a lot of sort of personal feelings of betrayal and a strong motivation for the player characters to bring them to justice, and you can set up a fallen hero in advance so the player characters can actually witness the fall and feel a sense of personal betrayal and loss as the hero goes over to the dark side, then so much the better, for it'll create a great deal of impact in your game, and your player characters will have a personal reason and motivation to bring this villain down, rather than simply just because they're the villain of the piece. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe and all that good stuff, and we'll be back next time when we'll be talking about a different type of villain. Until we see you then, take care, stay safe and keep gaming.